Hey, hi everyone. Hey, hi Pallavi. Hi Bhavesh. Hi Tim. Hi Sandeep. Okay. Uh, okay, fine. So good to see you all. Hi Sandrine. Hi Mohammed. Okay, so in yesterday's class, right, we went through the procedure and user-defined functions. In today's class, and yesterday I went through it in PostgreSQL, but I also know that most of you guys are also using other RDBMS, right? So let's in this class, what I'm going to be doing is I'll take basically the same code, okay, that we wrote in yesterday's session, procedure and function and everything, and I'll tell you what is the difference in the syntax and few different things when it comes to other RDBMS. Okay, so generally PostgreSQL and Oracle, they are very similar. Okay, I think there are just few differences. When it comes to Microsoft SQL Server, I think there is slightly more difference. Okay, there are certain the syntax is also different in certain cases, and there are certain rules that you need to follow. Okay, so I'll try to cover that in today's session. And then if there is time, I'll also try to show you what is the variations to recursive SQL queries in the other RDBMS like Microsoft SQL Server, Oracle, and MySQL. Okay, MySQL and PostgreSQL recursive SQL queries are exactly the same. They are like 100% same. They any query you write in any RDBMS will both work in both MySQL and PostgreSQL. Okay, but when it comes to Oracle and Microsoft SQL Server, a recursive SQL query, there is a very minor change that talk about. Okay, and then finally, hopefully we'll have time, and I'll start with the SQL project that I was talking about. So we'll look into the data set, how you can get the data set, and I'll also show you maybe some additional projects that you can maybe refer from online. Okay, I'll share a link, and yeah, so I think we'll do that, and then hopefully tomorrow we'll try to finish that project. Okay, and then if there is some time, I am actually preparing a list of uh, inbuilt functions, most used inbuilt functions, so I'll try to share it, and maybe we'll go through that. Okay, so this is the plan for today and tomorrow's session. And for the Q&A session that will be on Saturday, I'll take up some question that is pending. Okay, so that's all. Hi, Avinash. Hi, Abhay. Okay, so let's start. I'm going to share my screen. So I think this was the entire thing that we did yesterday, right? So you guys can see my screen, right? Okay. So what I'm going to do is first let me go to Oracle. Okay. So let me connect to Oracle. Is there anyone who is using Oracle here or has used Oracle before? Anyone? I'm PostgreSQL. Yeah, I am. Okay. Yeah, use it at work. Okay. So Brent uses it, and okay, Suraya and Tim. Okay, fine. So first of all, let me create the data set. Okay, so okay. Um, and the next thing is okay. Then what we will do is uh, data set is created. Let's open another session here. Okay. So what I'm going to do is this procedure that I have written. Okay, where I basically had these parameters. and then we called a function inside to do the validation, and if the validation was failed, then we return like not available. If it is successful, only then we process with whatever our procedure was meant to do, right? So I'll try to create the same thing in Oracle, but I'll use the same code that I have already explained in PostgreSQL, okay? So that you'll come to know what is the difference. Okay, the difference is actually very minor, but even if you may not be using Oracle, or if when I'm doing Microsoft SQL Server, if you're not using Microsoft SQL Server, it's always good to know what is the variations in the code, especially this kind of a code like procedure and function, etc. Because um, today you might be working on one RDBMS, tomorrow you might be working on because you go to a different company. It's not like when they are hiring for someone, and if let's say the company is so. For example, when I joined PwC, PwC was using Microsoft SQL Server. Okay, but prior to PwC, the company that I was working for, I think they were using Postgre or Oracle. Okay, some database, but still PwC hired me. They did not bother that I have never worked on Microsoft SQL Server. Okay, because my experience was in some other RDBMS, but that did not stop PwC from hiring me, because they know if you know SQL in one language, one RDBMS, you probably will be able to work in any other RDBMS. Okay, but when I went to PwC, I and that was the first time I started using Microsoft SQL Server. um, yeah, it was PwC, correct. So when I started first time using Microsoft SQL Server, I think initial 2 3 days it was kind of little difficult for me, especially not the SQL query part. SQL queries are like, except for the inbuilt functions, I felt most of the things are the same. The difficult part was the procedures. Okay, because the procedure I used to always see in Microsoft SQL Server, there used to always be this at symbol, everywhere, and I was like so confused. And the if and the yeah the if else condition statements, and there are a few other things. Okay, so I was able to grasp it within 2 days because we have Google. Okay, we can just go to Google and tell what is the variation in syntax for a procedure in Microsoft SQL Server and in Oracle and etc. Okay, but it's always good to know. Okay, what is the difference? Okay, so that's why I'm going to spend maybe half of the session today to explain that. So first of all, let me copy the function that I created. Where was that function? Okay, that was this function, right? So I'll just copy this whole, including this execute statement, and I'll go to Oracle. Okay, so I pasted this function here. Okay, now I have that running in whatever thought here. I am using PostgreSQL though. Okay, fine. So yeah, I think in some companies they use multiple RDBMS. So moving from one RDBMS to other RDBMS is actually pretty simple. Okay, so I need to create this function in Oracle. Okay, and if I execute the syntax that I used in PostgreSQL, and if I try to run it, okay, it's going to throw me an error. And currently it's telling this returns is not expected. Okay, so generally, right, when you get an error, it's always good to read the error, understand the error, and try to fix it. Okay, now I'm going to fix this error. I'll tell you what are the things that are not required for Oracle. First and foremost, in Oracle, you don't need to specify this language. Okay, so I'm going to remove that. Okay, I'll basically remove that entire line. Then I don't need to have this double dollar symbol. Okay, so I'll remove that. Okay, these two are only required for PostgreSQL. Okay, then in Oracle, we do not have something called as returns, but we just mention return. Okay, so that yes is missing. Okay, and then I think in Oracle, Boolean data type is not supported. Okay, so instead of Boolean, I'll try to do the same thing using varchar. Okay, and in Oracle, we have varchar, but over varchar, there was an enhancement done for the data type, and they created something called as varchar2. So generally, we always use varchar2. Okay, so kind of does the same thing, but varchar2 I think supports more characters or something like that. I don't know exactly what is the difference, but varchar2 is the latest one. We always use varchar2. Okay, so here also I'll just say varchar2, and I think everything else should be fine. And okay, and one more thing in Oracle is this: we don't need to mention this keyword declare. Okay, this is only required for PostgreSQL and other RDBMS. In Oracle, by default, whatever you mention before your begin and after your as clause, this is treated like your declare section. Okay, declaration section. Okay, so I'm not sure if I explained this. This is called as like a declaration section. This is where you declare your variables, your collection types, your arrays, your cursors, and whatever you need to declare for your code, you declare here. Okay, and then your whatever comes in between begin and end. This is like your execution section. This is where when you execute your procedure, the code that is mentioned here, this is what will get executed. Okay, and then there is something called as an exception section. Okay, exception when others, then here I can do something, but for now I'll just keep it null. Okay, this is called as an exception handling section. Okay, so generally your code will always have three sections. Okay, so declaration section, execution section, and the exception handling section. Okay, uh, so okay, now coming back to the syntax for Oracle. So I think this is all fine. Everything should work, and this is also fine. This is also fine. Okay. Um, yeah, I think should be okay. Let's see. Okay, since I made the return type to varchar, I cannot give a varchar just like this. Every varchar value needs to be within a single quote. So I need to convert this into single quotes. Okay. So I think that's all. Now let me run this. And I think the error is gone. Now it is compiled successfully. Okay, as you can see, it is compiled. Okay, so the variations between the syntax for Oracle and PostgreSQL is very minimum, right? You saw what did I do, right? So I think what I just removed this returns. I made it to return. I removed this language thing. I removed the double dollar thing. I removed this declare keyword. I converted boolean into varchar, and because of that, I put a single quotes here. And I think that's all, right? So nothing else. This exception handling is an optional section. It is not actually required always. It's we generally kind of whenever we are working on real-time project, we always use exception handling because if there is, it's like try and catch what we have in Python. I don't know in Java what you call it. Okay, but every programming language will have this. Okay, so during the execution section, if there is any unexpected error, okay, then or basically whenever there is an error, it kind of will not crash your entire program. It will come to this part. Okay, and here you can actually handle those exceptions. Sometimes you know that for a certain case an exception can occur, and when you get that exception, you do not want your program to crash. Okay, but you want to just maybe you want to ignore it, or you want to do log that exception in some log table or something like that, and all of that you can do it here inside this. Okay, so I think that's all for now. This is my function. And how do I execute the function in Oracle? In Oracle, we cannot just say select and from that function, we always need to use this from dual table. Okay. So from dual is something like a dummy table. It's by default present. It does not have it's like whenever you want to execute a function or whenever you want to display some constant or hard-coded value, we just do from dual. Okay, so I'll just execute this. Let's see what happens. Okay, so I executed this and you can see that I'm getting some output. Okay, it's telling like false. Okay, because I think iPhone 13 Pro Max 6 quantity is not available. But let's say if I do 2, now it is telling true. Okay, so looks like our function has worked. Now let's come back to our procedure and see what is the differences here. um, this is version 2, which was the last procedure that I created. Okay, here, so I'll copy this. Okay, so I have my procedure here. Now again, in the syntax, the difference is almost similar to what I did in a function. So this language is not required for Oracle. Double dollar is not required for Oracle. Okay, so I remove that. Okay, and then I don't need this declare keyword. Okay, and then I think everything. Okay, Boolean is not supported, so I will use um, check. Okay, sorry, varchar, and then here it is a select statement into something, but then I need to do the from dual. Okay, otherwise your query will not work. Okay, and then I think that's all. Okay, And here everything should be fine. This function I think should work here as well. And one more thing is this raise notice. Okay, so whenever you want to display a value to the end user, okay, in PostgreSQL we use this command raise notice. Okay, now basically it is the raise. Here I'm telling notice. I can also raise an exception, raise a warning, etc. Okay, but we'll not go in depth of that. But this raise thing will not work in Oracle. Okay, does anyone know in Oracle what is alternative to printing a value in your screen or in your UI? Since I see some three of you have used Oracle, do you know what is alternative to raise in Oracle? No, raise in Python is a different thing. In Python, raise is when you want to raise an exception. Okay, but here a raise is just to display a message. Okay, and it can be an exception, it can be a notice, it can just be a simple message or whatever. Okay, it's like you can tell print in Python we have print, right? So raise is an alternative to print. Okay, so do you know in Oracle what would be an alternative to raise? Anyone? Brent, RDBMS output something, not sure. Okay, okay. So in I think Bhavesh is somewhat right. Okay, so it's basically no print does not work in Oracle. Okay, it's basically this one. So DBMS underscore output dot put underscore line. Okay, then you need to open the parenthesis and close the parenthesis at the end. Okay, so this statement. Okay, so this is just the statement. That you need to use. Okay, so I think this DBMS output is a package or a procedure. I'm not sure, and this is like a procedure I think, or a function I think something. Okay, so internally this is something that is inbuilt by Oracle. Okay, but if you want to print a message in to the end user, then this is the statement that you need to use. Okay, so raise does not work, so I will just replace that here. Okay, and I think that's all probably. Okay, so this is false will not work because I made it to varchar. I need to put it into a single quotes, and I think that's all. Let's execute this and see if it works. Okay, so I'll just execute this, and I'm getting an error. And let's see the error. Okay, so just went somewhere else. The error is false. Okay, so it's not is false. It's equal to false. Okay, and now let me run this. Okay, so I think now the error is gone. It is fine. Okay, so you can see that the difference in the syntax is very minimum, right? So not much of a difference in Oracle and in PostgreSQL. I hope I am not going to be explaining the concept here because I already explained this yesterday. Just showing you the syntax. And then one more thing is in PostgreSQL we need to use the call keyword to execute a procedure, but in Oracle we use the execute keyword. So either the entire name execute or you can just mention exec. Okay. Um, and then you mention the procedure name and then you provide whatever arguments it's required. Okay, so let's try to see what data we have in the products table. So we have AirPods Pro with 10. Okay, now let's say I'm going to make it like I want to purchase 6. Okay, and if I execute this, the procedure is successfully completed, but I did not get any message, right? You see that I do not have any message telling that whether it was uh, this message, right? The product sold successfully. This message is not displayed, right? Um, does anyone know why it is not displayed here? Any idea? Let's look at the data if the actually execution happened. AirPods Pro, you can see that it happened because it was 10, now it is 4, right? Execution happened, but the output message was not displayed. It just told this one. This is like a default message that comes when you execute a procedure, but the actual message that you had given, the display message that you had given using the DBMS output statement is not printed. Okay. Anyone, do you know why it is not printed? Any idea? Okay. In Oracle, why it is not printed is because if you're using SQL Developer tool, okay, then you need to enable one particular thing. So you go to view here and go to this dbms output that you can see. Okay, so whatever is going to be printed from dbms output, that will be printed in this window, dbms output window. By default you will not be seeing it, so you need to go to view and you need to click on that, then only you will be seeing it. And then also you need to click on this plus button and you need to open a session for particular database that you have connected. So in my case, it is Oracle Cloud. So I'll connect to that. Okay. And now let's say I'm going to execute the procedure again. Hopefully there is only 4 remaining. So when I do 6, it should tell not available, something like that. So I'll execute this. And now it's telling the procedure is successfully executed. There is no error. But the message that I got is product not available. And if I go into my products table, you can see that AirPods Pro will still be at 4. Okay. So in Oracle, if you want to see an error message, if you want to see an output message, then you need to open this DBMS output window if you're using SQL Developer. Okay. So I think that's all about procedures and functions in Oracle. Now what I'm going to do is it clear? No questions, right, about this? Any doubt? I think someone asked yesterday about, it was Ramesh, right, about an out parameter, right? So let's do one thing, okay? I'll try to add an out parameter here and let's see how it works. Okay, so this was my final procedure that I created yesterday. Okay, now so all of this by default are in parameters. Okay, I can also mention something like I can put an in here and this will also work. Okay, so I can mention that, okay, in here, and I think this in I can also mention before the parameter here. Okay, but this will, even if I execute this and let's say if I execute this, it still works. Okay, because it's like a default. If it's like we have seen many places, right, default value, if you do not give anything, by default SQL is going to treat it like an in parameter. Okay, but some cases we may need to use an out parameter, and out parameter is something like you might be calling a procedure from inside some other procedure. Okay, and then the outer procedure may need to get some data once the inner procedure has been executed. In that case, what we do is inside the inner procedure we would have an output parameter, and when the outer procedure will execute this inner procedure, it's going to return the output through that output parameter. Okay, in most cases we would generally return an error message. Okay, the output parameter we would generally use for an error message. Okay, and in some cases we might use it for some collection type when we want to return multiple values. Okay, so in this particular case, let's say I want to display an error message. Okay, error message. Okay, and this will be, let's say, out, and this is going to be a varchar. Okay, so I just created this procedure. Okay, sorry, this additional out parameter, and then I need to use this out parameter. So I'm just going to use it. It's not mandatory to use it, but let me use it. So at the end of my um, statement, right here, I am just going to say equal to this will be like um, procedure. I'll just tell something like no error. Okay, something like this. Okay, and yeah, I'll just keep it like this, simple. Okay, nothing much. So I'll just tell no error and I'll run this. Okay, uh, okay. So now this is one more thing that you should be maybe not really required. I don't know what exactly this is called. This is called overloading, I think. Has anyone heard about overloading in programming languages? Anyone knows? Okay. So you guys, yeah, method overloading and um, all that, right? So it's basically present in every, I think, programming language. The same thing is present in these SQL programming languages as well. Okay. So what happened was initially, so in SQL, or let's say in PostgreSQL, what this kind of overloading kind of means is uh, I can create two different procedures with the same name. Okay, so I can have two different procedures with the same name, but if until and unless they have different set of parameters. Okay, or if their parameter data types are different. Okay, so let's see. Okay, here what's the error? Cannot change whether a procedure has output parameter. Just drop this one. Okay, so I think generally I'll do one thing. Okay, so I'll I'll go to Postgre. So this is my this one. I'll go to schema. I'll go here. I'll go to procedure. Okay. So did I create a procedure without a parameter initially? I think I did, right? Okay. So you can see here, initially I created a procedure with PR product sales. That is what you see here. Okay. And then I created a procedure with some parameters. Okay. Even though I used create or replace, ideally what should happen was it should have replaced the old procedure, right? But the thing is, if I change the parameters in the procedure, then SQL is going to create a brand new procedure. Okay, so this procedure here with the same name, these two procedures here with the same name are actually two different procedures for SQL, because the first procedure does not have a parameter, so it's a different procedure, and the second one has parameters, so it's a different procedure. Okay, this is called as overloading functionality in SQL. Okay, I think the same works in Oracle and other RDBMS as well. Okay, um, yeah. Just something that you should be aware about, because tomorrow you might be practicing and you might go into procedure and you might see, hey, I created the same procedure, but two of them have been created. It's because the its parameters might be different. Okay, either the number of parameters is different or the data type of the parameters are different. Okay, now that is one thing that you need to remember. Good to know. Okay, but here I'm getting an error because I think a procedure already exists with in parameters. I cannot modify. I cannot include an out parameter into that. Okay, so the only way I can do that is by dropping this procedure. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say drop procedure this one. So drop procedure this one. I dropped it. Okay, so I specify the list of. Okay, so I think I need to specify the arguments as well, because there are two procedures with the same name, right? So I think this one, now let's run this. Now the procedure is dropped. Okay. So, and if I wanted to drop the other procedure without without having any arguments, then I had to just give like this without any parameters. Okay. Anyways, that's this. Now let's try to create this procedure here. Okay. And the procedure is created. Now let me execute it. But when executing, I created one new parameter, that is the out parameter here, right? So so when I'm executing this, if I execute like this, it's going to throw an error telling that the no, the procedure does not match the, basically it's the error message states that the argument list is not in sync with what was used for creating the procedure, because here I passed only two arguments, but the procedure has three parameters, right? So does anyone know what is the difference between a parameter and an argument? Do you guys know the difference between a parameter and an argument? Anyone? Any idea? Parameter in calling function, argument is passed with the code. Okay, correct. Okay, so basically you can think them to be same. Okay, whatever, when you create the procedure or a function, the list of columns that you provide here, this is called as a parameter. Okay, but when you call that function or when you execute that procedure or a function, here in this case you will need to actually provide a value for those parameters. Okay, and these values are called as an argument. Okay, so argument, this can be actually a good interview question. Okay, someone might ask you what is the difference between an argument and a parameter. You can just tell parameter is the columns that is used when creating the procedure. Arguments are the values that is passed when executing the procedure. Okay, so that's all. Now here my third argument is my error message. So let's say I'm just going to pass some null value. Okay, so let's see if this null value works. Okay, and it does work. I did not pass any error message here, but since my procedure had an out parameter and I was passing some value into my out parameter, here you can see that my output is something like this. Okay, so this error message was from previous, I think. Okay, so here I'm getting like this. Okay, so basically what an out parameter does is, it's like self-explanatory, right? Input parameter means when you execute the procedure, the procedure will expect you to pass some value in the input parameter, and whatever values that you have passed in the input parameter, it's going to take it like an input, right? And that input parameter can be used within your execution block. Okay. You can use it in the exception block as well, but yeah, you can use it inside your procedure. Okay. But output parameter is something you can set a value for that output parameter within your procedure, and that value will be returned back to the person who called that procedure. Okay. So here I'm calling this procedure like standalone. Okay. But I can also call this procedure from inside another procedure. Okay. In that case, uh, here basically instead of passing null, I might pass some variable. So I can just tell v error message from some other procedure, and this v error message would get return would get the data that was written from this procedure. Okay, that is the whole purpose of using out parameter. Okay, when you want to return a value from your procedure to the outer world, okay, then you can use the out parameter. Input parameters are used when you want to pass a value into your procedure. Okay, so that's about out parameter. Okay. I'm not going in depth into all of these features because we can do so much more, but that would be an entire course on its own. Okay. I think that's fine. Now let's move on to Microsoft SQL Server. Any questions? Parameter is already a part of it and it saves the argument password. He values that are declared within a function. How to learn PLSQL? Okay, I get a lot of questions about this PLSQL, and I think there are not good resources to learn PLSQL. Okay, in my opinion, probably I'll make a course about PLSQL in the future. Okay, it's just that it's not a very popular language today. Okay, because I think 10 years back it was very popular. Okay, but today no new software being developed are using PLSQL. Only the existing softwares, especially the financials, like the banking softwares or something like that, right? They whoever have been using PLSQL, they continue to maintain that. Okay, so most of the companies are actually moving from PLSQL to some other. Like I know in Oracle, my brother used to work there. Okay, and he do you have you heard of FlexCube? FlexCube is a core banking system that is owned by Oracle, and it's one of the most widely used core banking system in the world. Okay, many of the major banks use FlexCube as a core banking system, and previously FlexCube version was actually built using PLSQL, but in the latest version of FlexCube, they are migrating from PLSQL to Java. Okay, SQL is still used, but PLSQL is getting migrated to Java. Okay, so and I think this is the same thing happening in other. So that is why you will not find a lot of learning resources for PLSQL, because it's kind of like people are moving out of PLSQL. But having said that, there are still lot of jobs for PLSQL. Okay, because lot of these big companies have already built their software using PLSQL, so they need people who know PLSQL. So you can also expect good salary because the resources are limited. Not everyone knows PLSQL, so you if you are in the finance domain, you have good opportunity there. Okay. Anyways, let's move on to Azure. Okay, so let me connect to Microsoft SQL Server. So I'll open a new, this one, maybe I'll open demo, and I'll first create the data set for this. This is MS SQL, right? I'm going to share all of this separate data set with you. Okay. Uh, First of all, this one, I think I don't have a copy of this. So I'll copy this and I'll put it into my session notes today. So before that, I need the data set, right? So this one. And this is creating procedure and function in Oracle. Okay. And this is my session 20 notes. Okay. Now let's say MS SQL. Okay, so I'll go back to MS SQL and I'll copy the data set. So the data set is created, and let me put it into my notes, session 20 notes. Then here, I need, okay, so again, instead of what I'll do is I'll just go back to my PostgreSQL, okay, and I'll take the function and I'll take the procedure and I'll tell you what is the difference in syntax, okay. So where is my function? Okay, this one. So I'll just copy this and I'll go here, okay, and okay, so first of all, in Microsoft SQL Server, this replace keyword does not work. Okay, instead of replace, we have something called as an alter. Okay, so in Microsoft SQL Server, there is no replace. We need to use alter. Kind of does the same thing but different naming. Okay, and the second thing, okay, of course, this language is not required. Okay, this dollar is not required. Okay, we'll remove all of that. Okay, and then Boolean, is Boolean supported in Microsoft SQL Server? I'm not sure. Let's see. Okay. Um, and then the major thing is in Microsoft SQL Server, here every parameter and every variable that you use in your procedure or function, it needs to have prefixed with an @ symbol. Okay, so this is mandatory. Every parameter and every variable needs to have the @ symbol. Okay, so I'm just going to put that here, even into this variable here. Okay, and into this variable here as well. Here, 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 and yeah, so that's one thing. Okay, the second thing is in Microsoft SQL Server, the declare that you are giving, right, you you need to provide, whenever you want to declare a variable, you need to declare it inside your begin. Okay, so all of this needs to happen inside your begin. Okay, so I'll put it like this. Okay, so that's the second thing that you need to remember. Okay, and then in Microsoft SQL Server, this into command does not work. Into keyword does not work. Okay, so if you want to assign a value that is returned from an SQL query, then you cannot use this syntax. But what you need to do is you copy this variable name, okay, and you put it here, and then you do equal to. So you say select the variable name equal to whatever column values that you want to fetch from the table, in this case count. Okay, so this into does not work. This is one more change that you need to do. Okay, and then one more major thing is in the if statement, right? So the syntax is like, I don't know why I'm getting this hints. Okay, I don't know how to disable that. But anyways, so I have this if condition. Okay, so your if statement, and then you mention your condition here, and then this then clause is not required for Microsoft SQL Server, so you cannot use then. Okay, and then you do not have to use this end if. Okay, so end if is not required. Okay, but there is one tricky thing that I will tell you when we come to procedure. But for now, I think that's it. So in your if statement, then is not required and end if is not required. Okay. And let's see if this works. Okay. So I'll run and I'm getting an error telling that column parameter variable cannot find the data type. Okay. So Boolean is not supported in a procedure in Microsoft SQL Server also, I think. So I'll use varchar. Okay, so varchar, and then since I'm using varchar here, I need to pass true and false within the single quotes. Okay, so I will do that. I think that's all. And there is one more thing. Okay, in in Microsoft SQL Server, whenever I am passing the data type for my parameters and in the return statement, okay, I need to pass the size of that, basically the size of that particular column. Okay, if I do not pass the size of that particular column, by default, Microsoft SQL Server will only accept one character. Okay, always remember this. Okay, this when I started working, this was one error that I spent so much time in fixing because I had no idea why my procedure was not working, and the reason was even though I passed the entire product name properly here, internally it would only take the very first character of that value. Okay, and that very first character of the value would not work here. Okay, and later on I realized it's because by default, if you pass varchar in Microsoft SQL Server, it only takes the one character. Okay, so you need to pass multiple. If you want to pass multiple, if you have a values, if you have inputs with multiple characters, then you need to pass the proper value. So I'll just pass 20. Okay, varchar of 20, and even the return also I'll do varchar of 20. If you don't mention varchar, like so for example, right, let's say I don't put this varchar of 20 here. Okay, let's execute this function and I'll show you what happens. The last, okay, this is also one more thing in Microsoft SQL Server, the last statement has to be a return. Okay, here the last statement is basically an if statement. This whole thing is one statement. So the if statement is our last statement, but in Microsoft SQL Server, in a function, the last statement has to be a return statement. Okay, so for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another variable here. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll just do at, and I'll say v underscore result. Okay, and this result can be a varchar, right? So varchar of, let's say, 10. Okay, and what I'm going to do is here, instead of putting return here, I'll tell varchar that variable equal to this one, variable equal to this one. Okay, now inside a Microsoft SQL server, whenever you want to assign a value to a variable, generally in Oracle and PostgreSQL this would work, but in Microsoft SQL server this will not work. Okay, what you need to do is you need to provide a command like set. Okay, you need to say set variable name equal to whatever value. Okay, so set. Okay, you need to use that. Okay, and then finally the last statement needs to be the return. So here I can just tell return my result. Okay, so this variable is going to hold either true or false depending on the if statement, and this return is where I'm going to return that final result. Okay, and I think that's all. Let's execute this. Okay, now it has executed successfully. It worked. Okay, to execute the function, again it's the same thing, but I think I need to pass the schema name here. Okay, so it's going to tell the function name is not recognized because by default, the default schema in Microsoft SQL Server is something called as DBO. Okay, so I'll say DBO dot this one. And now it works. Okay, but you see here, it works. It's returning me the output. Okay, so iPhone 13 Pro Max 6 does not exist. Okay, because I know only 5 or something exist. So 6 does not exist. So let's say if I pass, and here it's returning F. Okay, if I pass 2, and if I execute, now it's passing true. Okay, but it's only passing one character. Okay, so that's what I said. If you pass varchar, only varchar in Microsoft SQL Server, by default it will only send you, it will only accept or send you one character. Okay, so here if I say, let's say 10. Okay, and now if I execute this function, and now if I execute basically this function, now it's returning the entire value. Okay, so this is an important thing that you need to remember. Okay, in Microsoft SQL Server, always pass the size of your column. Okay, or the return statement whenever you're using varchar. Okay, okay, so I think this syntax, is it clear? Is there anyone who is using Microsoft SQL Server here? Some of the procedure functions are common with Python. Procedure functions. Actually, there is a lot of similarities. That is why they tell if you learn one programming language, then if you want to learn another programming language, it becomes much easier because a lot of things will be same. What is Jay saying? I don't see store procedure overloading in SQL Server. Okay, maybe not present. Okay, there are certain features that are not supported in every RDBMS. Okay, so maybe in, because they don't have alter. Okay, so I think if that is the case, maybe that is true, Jay. Okay, in PostgreSQL and in Oracle, overloading is supported. Maybe in MySQL and Microsoft SQL Server, it's not supported. Okay. Okay, so I hope you got the syntax. The important thing that you need to remember is this one. I struggled for many days when I was working in PwC to, and that is why I properly remember, because when you get stuck on a particular problem and you really like suffer because of that problem and you have no idea what is happening, and because the same syntax should work in Oracle, but if you don't give a size, and in it was very difficult for me to at that moment, I think many years back, to fix this issue. Okay, and later on I fixed it. I don't know how, but anyways, this is one thing to remember, and also how the declare variables are given. This is different. If you want to set a value to a variable, it is different. And this at, without this at, if I remove this at, it's going to basically throw an error. Okay. Okay, so this is about function. Now let's come back to our PostgreSQL and try to create a procedure and see what is the difference in a procedure in Microsoft SQL Server. And is there anyone who uses Microsoft SQL Server here, who is present here? So I'll copy this procedure. I'll come back. Okay. Um, okay, there are few. Okay, fine. So again, first of all, replace does not support. So I will do alter. What is the time? Okay, so we are a little short of time. But okay, I think after this I'll get into the project. Okay. So here create or alter procedure, and then that's the first thing. Replace. Okay, basically replace the replace with alter. Okay, and then you have this. You need to put every parameter with at, and I think you don't need to mention this in. Okay, Even if you want to mention this in, I think you need to mention this in either at the end or at the beginning. Okay, so the syntax is slightly different there. Okay, but if you don't mention it, it's by default in. And okay, so for now I'll not use this output parameter. I'll try to create it without the output parameter. Okay, and I think that is the add symbol. Okay, again, I don't need to mention this language. I don't need this double dollar. I'll remove this double dollar here. And then what else? Okay, so Boolean is not supported. So I'll say varchar of n. Okay. And then, okay, so first of all, let me put this at into all the variables and parameters. So this is my parameter, this is my parameter, this is variable, and then variable, parameter, and then parameter. I could have done find and replace easily, but anyways, this is parameter, this is parameter. Okay, fine. So all this is fine. There are few more changes that we need to do. Let's look at that one by one. Okay. So first of all, this declare, I cannot use it here. I need to use it inside my begin clause. Okay, in PostgreSQL. So let's try to do that. And the second thing is, um, so if I have multiple variables, I can just use one declare keyword and then put a comma here. I don't need to uh, I cannot just if I have to declare multiple variables separately, then for each variable I need to give a declare keyword here. Okay, so this is one thing, and then I have my function. If I want to assign the from my SQL query, if I want to assign a value returned from the query into a variable, then what I need to do is I need to say this equal to this one. So at equal to this one, and I think that's all. But here I need to say the schema name, that is dbo dot that one. Okay, and then I have my v check. Okay, so this is varchar, so I'll tell, so it's not is but it is equal to false. Okay, and okay, in Microsoft SQL Server this raise notice does not work. The alternative in Microsoft SQL Server is actually print. Okay, so I can just use print here, and then okay, so this into will not work. So again, what I'll do is I'll say this equal to product code, and this price equal to this price. Okay, I think that's all. And okay, one more thing, this current date. So this current date is a function that is only supported in Postgres and in Oracle, but I think in Microsoft SQL Server, let's see. Okay, what is a function? I think it is to get the current date. It is get date get date. So this is 15th September, but it also has timestamp. So I can just do a cast of this as date, and now I'll get the date. Okay, so I'll use this function. So I'll go back here, I'll put this, and then I think everything else is fine. Okay, so this raise does not work. Print, and I think, okay, so this one, end if. Okay, so in this is one more thing that you need to remember in your Microsoft SQL Server. In if statement, okay, this then is not supported. Okay, and then this end if is not supported, so you remove that. Okay, additionally, inside your if block and or inside your else block, if you have more than one statement, then you need to put you need to enclose that entire thing within the begin and end block. Okay, so I put a begin here, and at the end I need to put an end here. Okay, so this is one more thing that you need to remember. I don't know why this maybe this Azure not the best IDE, I feel, or I need to do some setting. It's not very clear, right? I feel PostgreSQL is very clear, right? I don't know. My personal preference is, sorry, PG admin tool, I think it's more, I think, clear to see in the eye. I don't like this SQL developer, and I don't even like this Azure Data Studio. Okay, maybe there are better tools, but anyways, because it's not very easy to see. But I hope you are getting the point. Uh, okay, so the thing is, if you have multiple statement within your if or within your else part, then you need to enclose it within begin and end. Okay, so I think that's all I have, and let's execute this and let's see if this works. So I'm getting a lot of error. Let's see what is the error. uh, must declare the scalar variable v check. uh, okay, so I missed a comma here. Okay, so now let's execute this again. So now it's telling line 12 v check. If v check equal to this, print this. Why is this not working? Or is it here? Select this equal to this. Hmm. Can anyone notice any syntax error here? Hey, are you? I think we should move on to the topic. This are syntax stuff. Okay. So let's do one thing. I'll spend 2 minutes and then I'll move on to the next part. Okay. Okay, fine. So in that case, right, since you guys are not interested in looking at the difference between all of this, I'll do one thing. I'll just move on. Okay. So I'll move on to the project and I'll try to share this syntax after the class. Okay. So I think there are some silly mistakes must be there. I'll try to share you the actual syntax later on. Okay. Anyways, so since you are guys are not interested in this, let's close this. I don't want this, and I don't want Oracle, and I need only PostgreSQL. So I'll try to show this project here in PostgreSQL. And okay, so what do I need? Okay, so I need the project, right? Okay, so let's open the project. Okay, so the project that I will be doing in this particular class is basically something called as a Chinook digital music store. Okay, so this was a project that I found in GitHub. Okay, so first of all, so basically Chinook is kind of like the database name, and there is a reason why they call it Chinook. I'll tell you a little later. But basically, this is a database. It has data set about a digital music store. Okay, so there are some information about certain uh, artist, about certain the tracks and about the album and etc. Okay, and there is a digital music store and they want to improve their business, and using this they want to do some analysis of the data to improve, to answer some questions so that they can know what they need to do next to kind of get more revenue from their business. Okay, something like that. So this is kind of the project about. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you. um, Okay, so I'll be sharing all of this with you, but before that, right, I will be doing just this one simple project here. But if anyone is interested in doing more projects, what you can do is I'll be sharing some links. So this is one of the I think blog that I found where they're telling you have 15 SQL project ideas for data analysis. Okay. And then you can just scroll down and you can see some of the project ideas like inventory management, and then this European soccer game analysis. I think you'll get this data set from Kaggle. Okay. And there are a few other projects, okay, that you can look into this. Okay. So if you are interested in working on some projects, maybe you want to put it into your resume, you can follow this link. I'll share it with you. Okay. That's the first thing. Then let's come to this Chinook dataset. In fact, I found this Chinook dataset also somewhere here only, I think. Okay, uh, probably. Yeah, so this digital music store analysis. Okay, so I think from here I went to this particular GitHub repository, and that is where I found this dataset. So, sorry, this project. Even I have searched for this project online only. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, first of all, let me show you the main GitHub repository which has this project. Okay, so this is not my repository, it is someone else. Okay, and you can see that uh, I think this is owned by Lerocha or someone. Okay, and this is basically my Chinook database. Okay, so here they're telling this is a database available for SQL Server, Oracle, MySQL, etc. Okay, and they have told all the supported databases. Okay, it kind of will work probably in any RDBMS. Okay, and then they have some. So you can. I'll be sharing this link. You can go through this link and you can go through this GitHub repository to okay. First of all. Uh, does everyone know what is GitHub? Has everyone ever used GitHub? Do you guys know what is a GitHub? Okay. So if you are, I think it's always good to know what is GitHub and what is Kaggle, especially. Okay. Basically, GitHub is kind of like a platform where you can find uh, thousands of different projects. Okay. So basically, it's like okay, many people use it, like uh, people like individuals like me also use it, and corporate companies also use it. Okay, there it can be like a good place where you want to work. If you want to work with a team and you want to collaborate with multiple different people together on a single project, then this is a place where you can kind of like post your project. Okay, and then you can give access to multiple different users, and multiple different users simultaneously can work on the project. They can create different branches to the project, etc., etc. Okay, so it's like maybe if you have worked on like companies where you have used I don't know, like SVN or some other what is that called, version controlling tools. Okay, so okay, you can treat GitHub is built over that. Okay, because in order to use GitHub, you also need to know something called as a Git. Okay, now Git is a version control tool. So I'm not going to be explaining you what is version control tool, what is Git, and what is GitHub in detail. Actually, I have made a couple of videos on YouTube about Git and GitHub. I think, to be frank, they were one of my favorite videos. Okay, because I think I explained everything very neatly. Okay, so if you want, you can go to that video and understand what is Git and GitHub. Okay, then you will come to know that GitHub is a place where you can find so many different projects. Okay, and same way Kaggle also is a place where you can find a lot of different data sets. Okay, if you are looking for data sets, I think you will get it in either Kaggle, mainly Kaggle, or if you want projects, you can get it in GitHub. Okay, so because for job search you might be looking for a lot of projects, right? I would not say that you go and copy someone else's project. Okay, actually you can do that. You can fork someone else's project and you can bring it into your profile, and then you can modify it accordingly. But anyways, so GitHub is a place where you will find thousands of different projects. You can actually work on someone else's project. You can make changes, you can suggest changes, you can do improvements, etc., on others projects as well, and you can post your own project as well, and you can let others to work on your project. Okay, so it's very popular. Just check it out. Yeah, maybe watch my video, you'll get some understanding. Okay, now the project that we are working on is basically called as a Chinook project. It's basically the name of the database. The name of this sample database was based after the Northwind database. Chinooks are winds in the interior west of North America. Okay, so there is a reason that they have given this name. We will not bother about that. Okay, if you want, I'll be sharing this link. You can go through all of this history. Who is interested? Okay, what we are interested in is how do we download this database, okay, this data set, and then how do we work on that. Okay, so here they have already mentioned how you can download all of these data sets. Okay, so you can read through that. I already have the link from where I can download this data set. I'll just open that. Okay, so this is also part of that same what is that same repository. Okay, so here in this particular section, this is where you will see all the database files. Okay, depending on which database you are using, you can go and download the database file. Okay, so for MySQL you have this file, and then for DB2 you have this file, for Oracle you have this file, etc. Okay, so I tried to download these files for Oracle, PostgreSQL, SQL Server, and MySQL, but I think in some of the files I found some issues. Okay, because what I was hoping is I take this file and I just execute it in my database and it should work. Okay, I found some issues, so I have done some corrections to these scripts, and I'll be sharing with you my corrected scripts. Okay, so and those scripts you just copy it and paste it into your database, and it will create the entire data set. Okay, so for example, what I'm going to do is I'll show you the data set that I have created. So I just copied those four data set from the GitHub repository, and I modified some of them to make it proper. Okay. And then let me open. So let me show you PostgreSQL data set. So this is how that data set is actually present in the repository. Okay, so here initially this is kind of like the history. Okay, it's telling what is the database name. Okay, and then what is the file name. There's some description, which database this supports, who is the author of that, and whatever, etc. Few things. Okay, and then here it starts with all the different tables that this data set has. Okay, then you will see the like the table creation scripts, and then you have some scripts for like creating all the different constraints. Okay, they are all separate, and then you have the insert scripts. Okay, now generally when you are working on some real-time projects, this can be a way how you would get a data set. Okay, if you might have a requirement where you might want to work on a project, and your project manager might tell that the data set is present in Git in this particular repository, so you might have to go to Git or some other version control tool, and you might see some scripts like this. Okay, and it might look similar to this. Okay, and then you can just maybe either you can execute the file itself in your database, or you can copy the script and put it into your database. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this entire thing and go into my PostgreSQL, and I'll create a new database for this. Okay, uh, so I'll create Chinook database. Okay, so I'll connect to Chinook, and I'll paste everything, and I'm just going to run everything together. I ran it, and it got executed like what, in 564 milliseconds, not even 1 second. Okay, it's very fast in Postgre in pgadmin tool, but I think the same thing when you run in Oracle, it might take a few seconds. Okay, uh, so okay, so this is fine. I have created my data set. Okay, now before I go there, I want to say one more thing, and that is, so let's say, uh, okay, so SQL queries and assignment. So let me open it separately. I don't want to show you the solution right away. Um, okay. So I have this data set, and maybe I'll open another tab here. Okay, so I just gave you an introduction of what, from where I took the data set, what it is about. Let's understand this better. So this project is basically a data analysis project for a digital music store. Okay, so imagine there is a digital music store. Okay, who are basically a store which is selling some music. Okay, and what they need is, this is a data analysis project to help the Chinook digital music store, to help on how they can optimize their business opportunities, and to help answering business related questions. Okay, so they want to improve their business, maybe their revenue or etc. Okay, and they already have been in existence for maybe, let's say, for a couple of years, and they have already gathered some data. Okay, so they have already some data about their store. Now using that data, they want to better understand what works for them and what may not work. They want to know which artist may be, so let's say they want to conduct some concert maybe after 3 months or something. They want to know they would want to know in which city, if they conduct this concert, they might get more profit. Okay, and they would also want to know for that concert who are the artists they would want to invite. Okay, because they want to know who is the most popular artist, right? From which artist the most the tracks have been sold, right? Or which location, in which location they found the most customers who did some purchase, right? So if they can find answers to these questions, they can then conduct a concert accordingly, making sure that this, if I do the concert in, let's say, in New York on this particular date, and if I invite these artists, I can guarantee that most of the people are going to come to that concert, and this can make good revenue for me. Okay, and good sales for me. Okay, so I'm just giving you one example. So this is generally what happens in real time in your work also, right? Or if you get a project, right? So there will be some business. Okay, and they want to improve their revenue. They will already have some existing data that you see here. using that data, you will need to answer some questions that can help the business to thrive better, right? So so that's what we will be doing in this particular project. Okay, now in so as part of this project, we have been given a data set, that is a Chinook data set, and it has, I think, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, some 11 tables. Okay, all these tables, we'll see what they are. And here they have some ideas. Okay, so SQL project ideas. Below is few sample questions you can attempt to practice on this database. Okay, this was actually given in the GitHub. I have actually added more questions to this, but this is some of them given in GitHub. Okay, so they're telling which city corresponds to the best customers. How do they know in which city they have their best customers? Okay, maybe then they can maybe open a new store in that city. Okay, so they know, because they know that most of the customers are present in that city, maybe they can open a new branch there. Okay, for that purpose. And then the highest number of invoice belongs to which country. They would want to know from which country they are getting the most business, right? Because they can then maybe offer some special discounts for people from that country so that they can get even more revenue or something like that, right? Name the best customer who spent the most money. Okay, they would want to know who is their best customer, so that maybe it happens to you, right? If you have a credit card, you will get so many calls from a particular bank telling that, hey, we will offer you that, we'll offer you this. Why? Because maybe that they had some algorithm with which they identified that these are the selected few profitable customers for us, and we would want them to make more business for us, so that we will give them more additional benefits. Okay, so they might reach out to you, etc. Okay, so you need to think it in a way that if I am holding a credit card, and let's say if I'm having a bank account and I don't have a credit card, but I have a lot of transactions going on in my bank, somehow the bank will come to know that you are a potential customer who would be very beneficial to the bank if you would have a credit card with a very high limit. Okay, because maybe your transactions are good, you have been doing a lot of good transactions and lot of purchases and etc., right? So how do banks reach out to you, and how do they give you an offer? Because for you, they might give you an offer that might be different from some other customers. Okay, they identify that because they have analyzed your data in their database, and based on that they have identified who are good customers, which location is good for them, and etc., etc., right? And that is what all of this is about. Okay, and let's say suppose you want to host a rock concert in a city and want to know which location should host it. Okay, query the data set to find the city with the most rock music listeners to answer this question, right? So this is what I said. If this music store wants to conduct a concert, they want to know, okay, they want to conduct a rock concert, okay, for the rock music, and they want to know in which city they can find people who are actually very much interested in rock music. You would not want to conduct a concert where there is no one who likes rock music, right? In that case, that concert, no one is going to come, right? So when you want to have a rock concert, you want to first make sure that which city is more suitable for that, and maybe you can find out which city is more suitable for that using these data sets. Okay, and then if you want to know which artist the store should invite. Okay, so again, the same thing that I said, find out who is the highest paid and most listened to. Okay, we want to know which art people are listening to which artist the most. Okay, depending on that, we would want to offer good price for that artist so he can come and participate in the concert, right? So I hope you get the idea. Do you guys get the idea of what this project is about? Okay, what you need to do, because this is an SQL project. If it was a Python project, or if it was a data visualization project, then I don't have to stress this much to explain this, because easily I could do a visualization maybe using Power BI or maybe using Matplotlib or some other libraries, and you could then I could visualize what I'm trying to explain here. But in SQL, I cannot visualize you the things, right? And that is what we can do, is we can write SQL queries, right? So that is what this project is about. I was expecting case study, and from there we should design proper database, feed data, and finally extract some complex data sets. Okay. Do you recommend any such case study in if you come across anywhere? This project seems another SQL query exercise. Okay, so I think this is what I had mentioned in the beginning of the class as well, Jay. This is going to be a project what I just explained now. If you want case study, right? Um, Hey, who was that case study that you guys recommended? Danny, data with Danny, someone, right? So I think if anyone has a link to that particular case study, maybe you can share with Jay, and maybe he can look into that. I do not have a case study as such, maybe in future when I'm making an SQL course, I might take motivation from this data with Danny, what he has done, and I can maybe look into that. Okay, but for now, this is what I have. Okay, this is to practice SQL queries itself. Okay, because at the end of the day, SQL is all about knowing how to write SQL queries. Okay, okay, so this is what we have. Now I'm going to show you the this data set. Let's look at this data set. Okay, so first of all, I have a table called as album. Okay, and in album we have something called as an album ID. What is the title of the album, and then who is the artist who basically made this album. Okay, so this is what is present in album table. Then we have the artist table. Here we have the artist ID and their name. Okay, then we have the customers table, which basically has information about the customer ID, their name, their location, and some information about them. Okay, and then we have the employee table. So here in customer table we have something called as support rep ID. So maybe the employee who supported this customer is mentioned here. Okay, and then we have this employee table where we have the employee ID and their informations. Okay, then we have the genre table where we have like the genre ID and what type of genre it is, that is mentioned here. Okay, then we have two invoice tables. Okay, so first we have this invoice line table. So this invoice line table is, you can see there is this two different invoice line is linked to the same invoice. Okay, the thing is, when a customer will purchase a track, okay, them at one single purchase or at one single order, they might purchase multiple tracks. Okay, so here you can see I have two different tracks. Okay, and it basically is, so it's two different tracks, but he has bought it together, so it belongs to one invoice. Okay, so that is why you have two records for invoice line for the two different tracks, but it belongs to the same invoice, and the invoice information along with which customer purchased that invoice is present in the invoice table. Okay, so that is why we have two different invoice tables here. And then we have media type, what type of file it is. Okay, what type of file is available in this particular store. And then the playlist and the what are the different playlists and what are the tracks that are available in each of the playlists is present here. Okay, and finally we have the track. This is basically the information about each song. Okay, that is present, who, which album it belongs to, what genre it belongs to, and what is the, okay, artist information is not present, but album ID information is present. Okay, so this is what the data set that we have. Okay, now just to make it even more clear, to understand what is the what is it, the data model of this particular database, we have something like this. Okay, so this is the data model. All the 11 tables are present here, and how each of these tables are linked to one another is mentioned in this diagram. Okay, I'm going to share this after this class. Okay, um, is it all clear so far? Did you guys understand? Okay, so this one is just the number of rows present in each of these tables. I just put that here. Yeah, I think I was just trying to verify if I have all the data that was present in the GitHub repository. So I think when verifying the data, I did some of this. Okay, um, please give ideas in session notes. What ideas, Dolly? What do you mean? Whatever I explained here, is it? Do you mean to mention that as notes? Okay, so I'll tell you. I think okay, so most of the things are already present here. I think that should be fine. But yeah, so, and maybe I already explained in the recording, so I do not really have a notes. I will have to basically watch my recording again and explain and write it down. But um, let's see. Okay. Yeah, so Abhi, it is self-explanatory. If you read whatever files I give, right, you will kind of understand, and also more importantly, go through the GitHub repository. It will also help you to understand how GitHub repositories actually looks like, and also you can understand the data set. Okay. Now, I want to ask you one question. So let's say you're working on a project. Okay, and I'll tell you my real example. So when I was working with PwC, right, I was working. I was working for a fraud detection team. Okay, so we, what was it? I forgot the exact name. It was, uh, Okay, I forgot that exact name. Okay, but basically, I was working as a data analytics consultant. Okay, and in that particular company, all the projects that we used to get, they used to be very short term projects. Okay, the first project that I worked was only for, it was a 1 month project. Then the next project that I worked was for only for 2 weeks project. The next project that I worked was for, I think, 3 months project. But generally, the projects are very small. Okay, and the one of the very first project that I got was, they had given me all the data set in an Excel file. Okay, and actually, in that, the first project that I worked for 1 month, I did not even have to use SQL. Okay, it was just analyzing everything through Excel file. So I just had to write Excel formulas to do all the different analysis. Okay, and then the next project that I did was something like this. Okay, so that, I think that was a 2 weeks project where we were given a data set in some uh, in it was present in some, I don't know where exactly, but we needed to load that project from some path, and then we could use our own database to load that data set, which looked very similar to what I'm showing here. Okay, so and what we were told is we needed to build some reports with some requirement that was given by the clients. Okay, and we also had to tell what is feasible and what is not feasible. Okay, something like that. Okay, and we also had a data visualization tool, okay, which we use to visualize the data. Okay, but of course here I'm not going to be using that. But when I got that project, can anyone tell? So I got that, I first of all, I took the data set like I took it now. Okay, I put it into my own database. When I say own database, it's the PwC database, whatever we had. Okay, we loaded the data. What did I do next? Can anyone tell me what did I do once the data is loaded? What is the next step that I did? Can anyone guess? Okay, right. The first thing that I did was I analyzed the data, right? I needed to know what is this data set about. Of course, we will be given a documentation telling that this data set is about that, but those documentations are like, they don't have a lot of information, right? So it is our responsibility to look at the data, right? So what I exactly did now, when I went through each of the table and I explained you, this is a very, you can understand when I say music store, you can understand. But the project that I was working on, PwC, I had no idea about, I did not know about that domain. So for me, first it was to go to the internet to understand what is that domain about, what kind of business is it. Okay, just to understand, get some understanding about that business. Once I have some understanding, of course I'll not get complete understanding, because that was the first time I was looking at a domain like that. I actually forgot what was that domain. Okay, because it was so new to me, I had never looked at a domain like that. Okay, and then they had given some tables. So once I had some basic understanding of the domain, then I went and looked into the data into all of these tables. Then I could kind of relate, oh okay, so this table is holding data about this particular concept in that domain. So when I say music store, you'll come to know, right, what album means, right? You know what album means, you know what artist means, you know what is customer employee, you know what is genre, you know what is invoice. Okay, you should know what is the difference between invoice and invoice line. Okay, you should know what playlist will have, what playlist track will have, and what is track. Okay, you should know these, what data is stored in these tables. That's the first thing. The second thing you need to know is how are all these tables related to one another. Okay, for that you can take help of the diagram. Okay, or you can also look. So for example, if I go to track, you can see that I have a track ID. Okay, this looks like an unique identifier for this table, that is fine. Then I have the track name, this is a song name, that is also fine, not a big deal. Then I have album ID. I want to know who is the artist who worked on this track, right? But then I don't see any artist ID mentioned here. Okay, but I have something called as an album ID. So if I go into my album table, here I can see that who is the artist who did this album, right? So if I wanted to know a track was done by which artist, then I need to kind of link track with the album to come to know which track belongs to which artist, right? So something like this kind. So this relationship I need to build, right? So in order to identify these relationships, we kind of need to use the diagram. And sometimes we need to look at the data. If here it's only 11 table, but let's say if you're working on a data set with 50 tables, then that's going to be very difficult. But anyways, so this is what I did. First I analyzed the data, then I found out the relationship between different tables in that particular data set. Okay, once I have done that, okay, the next thing is I need to do I might need to do some data cleaning. Okay, so when I say data cleansing, okay, so the first step is steps followed during project. Okay, so the first step I would say is extract the data set. This is the very first thing, right? The second thing is analyze the data. Okay, um, identify relations between different tables. Okay, third step is cleansing data of data. Okay, and then fourth step might be it might be like drawing um, draw insights from data. Okay, or tell solve solve problems or answer given questions using data. Okay. So here I can also tell um, okay, this actually comes here itself. Here I can also tell something like visualize data for um, to share with stakeholders. Okay, so I'm just writing it down so you kind of get a gist of what it is. So first of all, any project you need to extract the data. Okay, then you need to analyze the data. As part of analyzing the data, look at each table, look at what the relationship is. Sometimes there might be more, sometimes more than tables. You might have some additional information given in the documentation. Here, the data set is pretty self-explanatory because it is about a music store. If you're working on a domain which you have no idea about, then it might be more difficult. Okay, then you need to see cleansing of data. Okay, so let's look at this step. So what is cleansing of data, by the way? Anyone? So Jay, this order ID I did not put in the insert statement. I explained in the recording yesterday. Did you look into the recording? Did you? I actually specifically talk why I did not put order ID in the insert statement. Maybe you watch the recording, you will come to know. So Jay is asking a question. Maybe if anyone else has the answer, you can answer it. If anyone else does not know, then maybe at the end of this session, I'll try to answer it. Okay. Okay. So what is data cleansing here? Anyone? Any idea? When I say cleansing of data, what do I mean? Any idea? We are having a ER diagram here, right? You can use it. Remove outliners. Is there some other things here? Remove duplicates. Cleansing means removing blank or replacing null. Outstanders. Fixing certain aspects of the data. Okay, correct. So fixing certain aspects of the data. I think that is a pretty good definition, right? So in other words, in most of the cases the data set that you get uh, will not be very accurate. Okay, there might be some redundant data, there might be some wrong data, there might be some data that you actually don't need. Okay, so when I say cleansing of data, okay, it might be remove redundant data. Okay, uh, or wrong, or let's say incorrect data. Okay, or it can also be remove redundant data or incorrect data. Okay, um, and then exclude um, data which is not required for this for your project. Okay. And then it can be something like fixing fixing incorrect fixing, I would say, wrong data. Okay. And there can be etc. Okay, few additional things. Okay, but generally when I say cleansing of data, it's like the data set that you receive most of the time may not be very correct. It might have some wrong data, it might have some data that actually is not required, it might have some lot of duplicate data, it might have uh, it might so there might be blank values in important columns, which basically if there are blank values you may not be able to process those records. Okay, etc. So you need to analyze the data, you need to see where there is some issue with the data, and you need to fix it. Okay, for this particular exercise I'm going to take maybe a few different few simple data cleansing examples. Okay, so let's say I'll just take something like let's say when we look at this data set, I want to find are there any albums owned by multiple artists. Now this is the data set about a music store, right? It's about yeah, about a music store, right? So here that are there any albums owned by multiple, so I know that an album can be owned by only, I can tell that maybe it is owned by one artist. Okay, so if I go back here, maybe that was a requirement that is given. Okay, certain things, uh, maybe it was given that every artist needs to have every album needs to be owned by a single artist. Okay, so in that case, how do you come to know if so this is my album table. Okay, so let's say this is my album table, so I'll just copy this. Okay, now I'll just copy this. Okay. Now, can anyone tell me? I have this table album. I want to know. I was told, or it is mentioned in my documentation or something that as per the data set, every album needs to be owned by only one artist. Okay. And now I want to do a validation or checking if there are any albums who are owned by multiple artists. How can I do that? Anyone? How can I write a query to do that? Bhavesh, why would you do a self join here? Abhi, why do you need a self join here? So what we need is we have these albums, okay, and then we have this artist. Here it's actually a primary key, uh, but imagine if it was not a primary key. Okay, uh, so when I say an album owned by multiple artists, it would be like, so let's say I have this album one, and let's say for this album one, if I had multiple records and one record artist was one, the other record artist was two, etc. Okay, so in that case this was not expected, this was not as per our expected requirement given to us in this project. Okay, so how I can do this is I can just tell group by album ID, okay, having count of one greater than one. Okay, and this album ID I can put it here. I can say count of one. Okay, and if I execute this, it's returning me no records. Okay, meaning that in this table there are no albums with every album only has one record only. Okay, so meaning that every album will be corresponding to a particular artist, right? So I can just tell that each album is owned by one artist only. Okay, so what I can do is generally in my project, even what I have done is not current project but other data analytics projects that I was working on. When we get a data set, we kind of create one file. Okay, this will be a file for, I will name it like data cleansing slash data validation file, something like that. Okay, and there I will have maybe 20 or 25 different steps that I have done to make sure that the given data is correct. Okay, and for each of the steps we generally write SQL queries. This is like one very simple query that I have written. Okay, so using this I can tell that there are no albums owned by multiple artists. Okay, so this is one such data cleansing thing. Okay, so that is one thing. The second thing is I can have a, I will need to do a check, something like this. Okay, so let's say I want to find is there any invoice which is issued to a non-existing customer. Okay, can anyone write a query for this? How can I write a query to find this? Okay, I want to know, are there any invoices which is issued to a non-existing customer. If there is, then that is a data issue, right? Because every invoice that is present in the data set needs to be pointed to a correct customer. I cannot have an invoice which was given to a non-existing customer. If there is, then looks like there is something wrong, right? So maybe someone did a fraud or something like that. So I need to find such irregularities in the data. So can anyone write a query for this quickly? Okay, so I think you guys are already become masters in SQL now. You have answers to almost all the questions very fast. So I have this invoice and I want to know if non-existing customer. So let's go in this table, invoice table, because this is a table I have both invoice detail as well as my customer detail. Okay, so I have the invoice ID and I have the customer ID, and then I have another table that is my customers table, right? So I have the customer table, and here I have customer. So if I want to know if all the invoice that is present is belonging to the proper customer, what I can just do is I can have this, okay, and I'll call it like I, okay, and here I can just tell where not exist, and I can just tell, maybe I can copy this. Let's see where c dot customer id equal to I dot customer id. Okay, so what am I basically doing is I'm telling fetch all the records from the invoice table where something does not exist in the customers table. And what is that something? That is basically customer id. If there is any customer id in the invoice table, that, so when I do this, for every customer id it's going to return some data from the customer table, right? If I get any record that does not exist here but is present here, that means that is a particular customer who is not present in my customers table. So if I run this, I'll get no records. So this means that data is correct. All the invoice belongs to valid customers. Okay. So this is also a second type of validation that I can do. Okay. Child shouldn't exist. Yes. Yeah. Something like that. Okay. So, and also you can, what I'm going to do is now, since the time is up, I'll just mention some other data validations that you can do. You can do it after this class. Okay. So this is for these are very simple data validations that you can do. The reason why I have simple data validations is because this data set that I took is actually pretty clean. Okay, it's not having a lot of wrong data. Okay, as far as I have seen. If you analyze the data and you see some wrong data, then just let me know. Okay. Uh, okay, so I'll I'm going to do one thing. Okay, so I'll give you some assignments. Okay, so I'm going to stop this project here. Okay, and I'll continue tomorrow. What you guys do is you try to and come up with and try to do this validations here. Okay, if you see any irregularities in the data, that's the first thing that you do. Try to analyze the data. Secondly, I want you guys to solve these below problems. Okay, so first of all, I'll tell something like this. Let's see how many people can solve it. And two, and maybe I will give you three. Okay, uh, this is the eighth problem. So this eighth one, don't want, I'll give you this three, four, five. Okay, so I'll give you five assignment questions. Okay, try to these are all basically the questions that the store owner wants to ask so that he can make better business, and you will need to fetch all of this data using this data set. Okay, so can you guys solve this problem, and can you guys analyze the data and check if there are any irregularities in the data using some validation queries? Okay, what I'm going to do is okay, so Ramesh, regarding recursion in MS SQL, I will come to that. Okay, I'll try to cover that. And first of all, let me put this into the notes file today. So this is session 20 project. Okay, so I hope you guys will be able to solve it. Now I'm going to show you the recursion, the difference in the syntax in recursion. But before that, let me answer Jay's question. I think Jay sent a few. I didn't want to assume, but that's what I thought. So Jay, your question is about what was that? Or why order ID is not used in insert, right? In yesterday's this one. So do we have the data set? Yeah. So this is a data set, right? So in this data set, here I have basically the sales table also has another column called order ID, but I did not put order ID here. Okay. So Jay wants to know why I did not put order ID here, right? Jay, is this what you want to ask? Can anyone answer? Okay. So you already came to know the answer, right? Is your question already answered? Yes, because this is what I explained yesterday as well. It is auto-generated because it is an identity column. You see here the create table syntax. It's telling generated by default as identity. So if I don't pass a value into this, by default, it gets generated using this identity function. Okay. And the same thing is supported in every RDBMS. The syntax might be slightly different, but yeah, it is the same concept is supported. And otherwise you get null value. Okay, now let's come back to one additional thing that I wanted to cover was recursion in SQL. Uh, do you guys remember I think I covered recursion in session 18, right? So session 18 and okay, so I use a different database for that. So I'll just open the database that I used. Which was the database I used for recursion? I think it was SQL queries. Let's go back here. And I'll take the script that I used for PostgreSQL. I think, okay, so what I'll do is I'll take the simple one. That is how I created the first 10 numbers. I'll go here. Okay, so this is what I had in recursion for PostgreSQL, right? Now, okay, so now the same thing if I had to create in MySQL, okay, so this is my MySQL, and let's say I put it here, and if I execute it here, and if I execute this, you can see that, okay, you can see that it works absolutely fine. So the recursion syntax in MySQL and in PostgreSQL are 100% same. Okay, no change at all. Okay, but when it comes to Oracle, so let's say if I come to Oracle and if I create a new session here, okay, and I pasted that query here, okay, and maybe I'll close all of this, and if I execute this, it's going to throw me an error, okay, because in Oracle there is couple of syntax changes. The first thing is this recursive keyword is not required in Oracle. We don't need to mention recursive, okay. Oracle will understand that the query is recursion when you have two parts of the query here, and the second part is basically using your city name, okay. The second thing that you need to do is here you need to always use union all, I think. Okay, so union is not supported. You always need to use union all. Okay, let's not do that. Let's execute this. Let's try to fix it based on the error. Okay, from keyword not found. Okay, so from keyword not found where expected. Mm, error message not very clear. But okay, so we need to use union all here. Let's see if this works. Uh, Okay, so this is one thing we need to use union all. The next thing is we need to give an alias for our whatever columns are fetched from our CT table. That alias we need to give it here. Okay, so I'll just tell n. Okay, and now let me run this from keyword not found. Oh, okay, okay. This is a different thing because this is Oracle. Here I need to say from dual. Okay, so this is mandatory in Oracle. Here I have from clause. Okay, now let me run this. And I think now it works. So as you can see here. So the only difference is if I remove this alias, it's not going to work. If I give union, I think it will not work. Okay, in Oracle we always need to give union all. That's one thing. Okay, and second thing, here I always need to give an alias. If I don't give an alias, I think it will throw an error. So this is a syntax in Oracle. Okay, so now let's come back to Microsoft. I hope this is clear, Ramesh. I'm going to share the session notes later. Um, let's come to Azure, and here let's open a new query window. Okay, and I'll put it here. And if I execute again, it's going to throw an error. So in Microsoft SQL Server, again, the first thing is I don't need to use recursive keyword. Okay, that's first thing. The second thing is union is not supported, only union all is supported. Okay, and now it will work. Only these two changes. So in Microsoft SQL Server, only two changes. Union all should be used always, and recursive keyword is not required. In Oracle, additionally, we need to give an alias in for our CT. That's it. Okay. So other than that, everything else works as it is. Okay. I'll share the syntax of all of this after this class. Okay. Any other questions? Anyone? This any and all, right? I did not cover it, but I think you can get, because similar to that, there are many other things. The meaning of that is pretty self-explanatory. Maybe you can just try to Google it. If it is not clear, then maybe you let me know in the last session. Okay. Um okay. So I think the time is up. Any questions? Let me know. Otherwise, in tomorrow's session, we'll try to finish this project. Okay. Um, yeah. So I think that's all. Any questions, let me know, or else I'm going to end the class. Okay, before that, was this project useful? I know maybe Jay was not very impressed with this project, but what about others? Do you like this project? Don't compare project of SQL with Python projects or data visualization project, but do you like this project, this data set, and the problems that you will need to solve using that project? Okay, so Aftab liked it. Glad to hear. What about others? Okay. Okay. So since you liked it, right, then I would highly recommend, before you even get into solving that SQL queries, first go into GitHub. Okay. If you have no idea what GitHub is, watch my video. You can watch any YouTube videos, but trust me, if I had to choose one of my favorite videos that I have created, the video that I created on Git and GitHub are actually two of my favorite videos. Just because I spent a lot of time to explain it in the most simplest of terms that I could. Okay, so watch those two videos, Git and GitHub, and then go to this repository. Okay, maybe you can try to fork this repository into your own repository. Okay, if you want, of course, and then you try to see why they have named this like Chinook, and what do they mean, what do they want to achieve from this database, from this project. Okay, then look at all the different files that they have given. Okay, and then maybe try to create this data set in your database. Okay, and then try to solve the problems. Okay. Okay. So I think that's all. Sai, you want to say something, or did you just join now? Okay. So if it is your first class, we only have two more sessions remaining. You can watch the recording from the beginning. I hope that will help. Okay. You can join the Telegram group. I think the Telegram group will be active even after the class is over. Okay, so I think that's all, everyone. So thank you for joining. I'll see you all tomorrow. Try to go into this project and understand the data, analyze the data, solve the five assignments that I have given, and then let's come back to it tomorrow. Okay. Um, okay, so no, it's not going to start from today. Everything is mentioned in my data, in my website, and also in the light also. I'm not sure why people are thinking that I'm starting the class now. This is actually the end of the class. But you have recording, so if you want to learn, you can learn from recording as well. My next batch of SQL codes is going to be after 4 months. So yeah, okay. So I think that's all. Thank you, everyone, and bye.